the Honorable Minister Jejo Dongo, all the Honorable Ministers of Foreign Affairs and heads of delegations, the representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations, the representative of the Chairperson of the African Union, all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to Uganda. There is a prepared speech which will be distributed, but I will make my remarks without necessarily following that prepared speech. First of all, we are very happy that you have come to Uganda in such big numbers. Thank you so much. Secondly, we want to thank you for having honored us with chairing the NAM for this period. Thank you for putting so much trust in us. Thank you. When I look at what's happening in the world, I feel quite sorry because people are behaving as if life has just started. Yet, the human race has been here for 4.5 million years. Most of that time, the human beings were living only in Africa. So I normally like to joke with friends that all of you here are former Africans, all of you, because you all started here, but migrated out of Africa to populate other parts of the world. Now, in these 4.5 million years, we have two categories of problems. Category number one is oppression of man by nature. That's how it all started, where you have natural phenomena like floods, like drought, like a disease, like earthquake, like hunger, oppressing people. However, man, because of the intelligent brain, has been finding solutions along the way. Started by making primitive tools to solve some problems. Then, 1.5 million years ago, invented fire, and the invention of fire caused big changes in society. That's how people stopped from living in trees and started living in caves. And that's why we here in Uganda, we regard the development of science and technology as the primer of human change, of societies, of changes in society. So therefore, all this time, when the different societies improve capacity to control the extremes of nature, improve science and technology, domesticate agriculture, like happened many years ago, then invention of iron, then the invention of the steam engine, and the other subsequent changes, the Industrial Revolution, we should feel happy for the whole of humanity. We should not be selfish that we should monopolize technology and advancement and affluence. When China was transforming, although we were far from China, we benefited from the changes in China. I remember in 1986, the price of steel had gone down to $200 per ton. And when we were trying to develop our steel industry here, we were told that no, don't bother with the steel industry because there is no demand for steel in the world. That there is a glut, what they call the glut. There's too much steel for your industry to be economic. This was, however, false. Yes, there was a little demand for steel because at that time, prosperity was only in a small area of the world. Prosperity was in Western Europe, North America, and Japan. And that's why so the demand for modernization items was small because the beneficiaries were few. But when China started transforming, modernizing, and India and Vietnam and other Asian countries, and even Africa to some extent, when they started modernizing, the price of steel went from $200 per ton to $900. So the transformation in China, in Asia, in other parts of the world, directly affected us here. The price of copper went up, the price of steel went up, the price of cement went up a bit because of the changes that were taking place in other parts of the world. So therefore, it's not correct for people to mix up issues. I've told you that operation of man number one has been operation by nature. Here in Africa, we are still suffering from a bit of that. We get droughts, we get famine sometimes in some of the countries, lack of electricity, disease, we still have those burdens. But we are struggling to control them. Here in Uganda, we are struggling. Now, the second operation is operation of man, by fellow men. This came along when man was beginning to advance. Smaller groups of human beings started trying to control other groups. This is what causes now conflict among the human groups. So therefore, the two conflicts must all be well understood. Once there is advance in the control of nature through science, we should be very happy, and there should be no conflict. I don't see why anybody would worry that country X and B and C have come up out of poverty. They have come up, they are more prosperous. After all, if you want to do business, why do you want to do business with a poor man, a poor partner? How much will he buy from you? Why don't we want all our partners to be prosperous so that we can do better business? Business is production and consumption. If you produce and nobody buys, there will be no business. So it is very important for all of us to understand this dynamic of business has two sides, production and consumption. In Europe, when there was changes in Europe, after Adam Smith helped Europe to understand the efficiency of the private sector in his book of 1776, The Source of the Wealth of Nations, there was rapid growth of industries, but consumption remained stagnant. And in 1929, the capitalist system collapsed. Why? Demand. You cannot talk of business if you don't talk of the purchasing power of all your partners. If you look at the GDP of Africa now, I think it is like maybe 4 trillion now, but this is too small. If the GDP per capita of Africa was about 20,000, given that we are now 1.5 billion people here in Africa, you'd be talking of a GDP of 30 trillion. Why should Africa have a GDP of about 4 trillion now, when we are 1.5 billion? If the GDP per capita went to about 20,000, you can see, I think we would go to about 30 trillion. If it goes to 25,000, would go maybe to 45 trillion. And our partners would benefit because we would buy more from them. So therefore, I salute the non-aligned movement. Our elders who started it did us a great service because they achieved a number of things. Number one, neutrality. At that time, there was a conflict between the socialist camp and the capitalist camp. And our elders said, no, for us we want to be neutral. We don't want to take sides. We want to judge issues on merit. And it helped us. And now, it is even more important. Because I can see there's a lot of intoxication. There's a lot of intoxication with the wrong ideas in the world. The ambitions of hegemonism will not work. If there is anybody who thinks he should control the world, he's wasting his time. How do I know this? The Pope, in the Middle Ages, tried to control Europe. The Pope, using Christianity, he tried to control Europe. It caused a lot of problems. There was what they called the 30 Years' War in Europe. When one of the kings of Europe, of England, wanted to become a Protestant, but the Pope would not allow anybody to change from Catholicism. You know how much chaos that caused. And in the end, the Pope failed. If you go to Europe now, to Rome now, the Pope is just in a small area called the Vatican. And yet he wanted to control the whole of Europe at that time. It can't work. Now, when capitalism came up, and I don't know why I would like to get time and talk to the Europeans, like I'm talking to you now, because the examples are very clear. When capitalism came up in France, the French Revolution, the capitalists took power in France, and they overthrew feudalism there. There was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. it had a leader called Metternich. Metternich now decided to go and defeat capitalism, to stop the emergence of the capitalist ideas. He failed and ended up by destroying Austria-Hungary. You ask anybody, where is Austria-Hungary now? It disappeared because it wanted to stop evolution of history, which is not possible. So therefore, we should concentrate on the minimum common interests in the world. This is my humble advice. I'm speaking to you as a third generation anti-colonial fighter from Africa. I came as the third generation of the 1960s, following our elders like Mandela and Nyerere and others of the 1940s, and the ones of 1912, who founded the ANC in South Africa. These were our grandfathers. So my advice to people in the world is that let's concentrate on minimum mutually beneficial interests. And these are trade, investments, tourism, and mutual support in any other area. Then where we don't agree, where we have got divergences, those are internal issues. And this is where my Christianity comes in. In the Christian religion, there is a portion which says, let your light so shine before men that they see your good deeds and praise your Father who is in heaven. In other words, if you think you are right, you do things properly in your own country, then people will come and see, this is a good example, and they will change. But not by coercion, not by fights, because it will not work, it has failed. I've quoted for you the Pope, I've quoted for you Metternich. Of course, I don't want to talk about the ones who tried to colonize us here, how it all ended up badly for them. Therefore, the issue of social systems should be for each country to decide which social system do you want. It's up to them to decide. But let's concentrate on the minimum common interest. Finally, let me salute our founders. I don't know whether the young generation knows them. And these were Nehru of India, Sukarno of Indonesia, Tito of Yugoslavia, Nasser of Egypt, Zhou Enlai of China was there in that meeting in Bandung. Then others joined later, like Mwalimu Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, Modibo Keita, and others. We salute those people. They gave us a good beginning. In my written speech, I go into the details of what the spokesperson of the African Union was talking about. But I'm very happy when I look around, see all of us together, I can see we may be the hope of the world. We people who are here will be the hope of the world. And I thank you for coming here, and I wish you good luck. Thank you so much.